Hi there, Randy Green here, and welcome to podcast number 3, where we're going to work with the text material as well as some of the ideas and purposes behind the whole Changemaker project and whole new business project. So let us go to the text material where it's just one page. And I put this case study or this implementing water turbines on the whole Changemaker project news Google site, which is at this point in 2022 is still out there and offered for free. And I'm going to work more with it throughout 2023. But I don't know if it's going to be there in 2024 or what have you. So therefore, I've here put that information into the text material so it will be connected to the course. And at the same time, I'll be able to explain some of the ideas behind it, which is the case study that we are having here in course 1. So we kind of get a little bit of exemplification and why they gave this to us. For the deeper implications of the background of this case study, implementing water turbines, I recommend you do the new reality course material 1 and 2, courses 1 and 2, which you'll find on the Systemic Energetic Awareness Forum website, which is randygreen.one, so you can get it there. And if you have questions about this in years to come and you're saying, where's that? Send me an email. And I'm just going to say it as it is. Typically, when I do course material, sometimes it is so good, I'll leave it there for years to come. And at other times, I'll take it down because it no longer is valid. And therefore, even though I refer to it here, because now it is valid, it's not the same as it's valid in 5 years' time. As I said, we're going to face a lot of changes in our reality field. The other thing I want to put in here before I begin is that as I did my organizational theory and human resource management formal education at the Copenhagen Business School in the beginning of the 1990s, from 1991 until 1994, there I got the foundation of quite a lot of the terminology and the ideas I'm working with. And I've done brush up courses on Coursera.org, which I can only recommend those of you who want to see what are the latest trends, in what direction are the different stakeholders, businesses, small businesses, big businesses, what are the new business models, what are they working within, how are they perceiving profit, and all of these kind of things. You can get that as brush up courses on Coursera.org, or you can pay for the different courses that are there and then technically put together an MBA, which is possible as well. And I would align that the 3-year study I did at Copenhagen Business School with an MBA, perhaps not to the same degree because an MBA is something that came later on, but this is an early version of something that we could align with an MBA if I had taken it further, which I never got to do because I got pregnant. But this is the typical one, the story of a female's life, right? But this is how it goes. So either way, this is about right now we're working from a theoretical point of view and not as much as, oh yes, this has been done before. If you want to go with what we call normal reality, change maker ideas, you should, or social entrepreneurship. There are plenty of courses offered both at Coursera.org. You can find free material on YouTube from different business schools around the planet, London Business School, New York Business School, whatever. You can find formal educations, which you can do if you really want to go out and say, well, I want to have this accredited as formal education. I want paper on it. I want to be examined in it in a proper way, because Coursera.org, you can kind of say, well, you can do a lot of, you can go through a lot of these courses and you can cheat all the way through, and then you say, oh, I've done it, and you get the certification. But this does not mean you have learned anything. But it's a good, for me, it is really good option to brush up a lot of stuff I'd done earlier in my life, because as you know, both have a bachelor degree at the University of Copenhagen in theology. I have got this very close to an MBA in organizational theory, leaders, management, accounting, human resource management, recruiting, strategies for leadership, and all these kind of things I went through as part of that education, formal education. I got examined in it. I've got paper on it. And I paid for it. So it's there, as well as a psychotherapist, which is also licensed. And I did the 3 years education there. I'm licensed under the law, the Danish laws of the standards of a psychotherapist. So I got all of the things I am claiming to have as formal education, but also brush up courses. And that's important when we talk about those of us who are going first as pioneers, or the first of many. This is not just something we do because we kind of feel, yeah, I can do that. And then we try to skip corners and do shortcuts. And then we call ourselves all sorts of fancy words. This for me, and it's always been like that for me, living inside this reality demands that we are professionals on all levels, whether it's being professional in the progression sciences, which is the first pillar I've made, working my way through all of these. I don't know how many courses there actually are and how many podcasts I've made, but let's just do around 400 podcasts or something, explaining the progression sciences and why it is not valid in our time to use chakra system teachings or the Kabbalah or any of these older 2,000 years old, 1,000 years old, 500 years old, 200 years old ideas, because they no longer are suitable for our reality as it is. All of this is part of when there was a density 2 sun functional under the colonizers, under the prohibiting technologies, and under the old world order. And reality has changed, as you know. So we need new approaches. But to really be good at what we're doing, we need to understand the past. We need to understand the history. We need to understand what others have done before us, because we can always go out as the young mind typically does. And I did that as well, going out saying, oh yeah, I know the answer. And then you just come up with, yeah, it's just going to do this, that, whatever. And then we fix all things. And then you get older and wiser. And then you understand, perhaps not, it's not that easy. But it's good to be that kind of cocky, I can do this idea, because you kind of need that self validation and that strength and that empowerment to say, I'm going to do this because I believe I can do this. But you also need to understand that believing in yourself is just the first step of the journey. That's one of your toolkits. You need to have that to be able to do so. And for me, again, personal insight here is that I did not have that. I'm a female. I'm programmed not to be self-confident. It's part of the female factory setting. We are programmed not to be self-confident. There are females that are, but most of these females I look at, they don't have a female quote unquote soul. They are males in female form. So they are self-confident because it's part of the third cycle. When we talk about what is male, third cycle, what is female, fourth cycle. Females, fourth cycle, humans, whether they're male forms or a female form, doesn't matter. It's just a vessel, organic vessel. The fourth cycle, integrated architectural energy systems and templates, or architecture and template, or energy system and template. You pick that one yourself, whatever it is, because I'm just referring here to the progression sciences where I taught my way through all of that. So you should know that already. Is part of what we could call what remains of the lineages under the old world order, whether it is regressed races as the colonizers, or enslaved races brought here by the Dracos or the scavengers, or of the original solar system lineages. And they have all been downsized. And the reason why I call it females, because that's the progressive, that's the defaulting collective. Males are typically, whether they're in female form or male form, doesn't matter. We're not talking penises and vaginas here. Whether they are, whatever body they're in, they are typically third cycle D13 collective humanoids. So males, third cycle D13 collective humanoid, female, fourth cycle D14 progressives. And both have been enslaved and imprisoned, and are all sorts of issues are going on and being used as pawns in this very complex game of the different alien races that are here. So let's just put that one, nail that one down and say, if you're a male in a physical male form as well, you typically have got third cycle issues, dark ones, the 3-5 configuration, Atlantean genetics, military projects, typically linked up to fallen timelines, the Orion Collective, third cycle entities, third cycle groups, third cycle factions, third cycle projects. Females in female form, or males in fourth cycle males that are also in male form. And we have actually also got females that are part of, again, let me reframe that one. So you kind of, because not just males, because we do have third cycle females that are also in female forms. These are typically under the lunar projects. They are typically under the, what we call the breeder projects, under the Aldebaran Collective, under the Taurans, under the ones that are controlling the 2-8 pillar and the second cycle, and the beginning of the third cycle, and the deviation of the third cycle into different human projects under different fourth cycle and fifth cycle regress races. So it's there, and that's why it makes it so difficult. And you would say, well, could I just get a template reading and you could see these kind of things for me and then I know what to work with? No, it's like telling you that you are that you have got blue skin, and you will say, I don't have blue skin. And I say, no, you got blue skin. And say, no, I don't have blue skin. And that's kind of, we'll have that discussion, because I'll tell you something you're not knowledgeable of, that you're not ready to hear. It will just be as outlandish as if I told you you had blue skin. So therefore, you have to experience these things on your own. So when we talk about the toolkit, we can only do it on a general level. And then we had the fourth cycle, typically regressed races, LPF2, density 2, under the colonizing races, under old world order factions, and under old world order projects. And that is the main perception of reality as it is, because males or third cycle humans, be it males or females, are typically operating in what we call the fifth dimension and up, whereas the fourth cycle, typically in the fourth dimension, very close to our reality, and therefore it's easier to get to that understanding and see that, because it's also been part of both the New Age teaching systems, the guru teachings, the chakra teachings, as well as all other sorts of ideas of spirituality, whereas we could say religion is between fourth cycle and third cycle, depending which type of religion we're talking about. So this is, again, what's like, put it into boxes, Randy, please, so I know what I'm dealing with. Sorry, we can't do that. Everything is mixed and intermixed, and that's the complexity that we're working with. So one of our tools in our toolbox is to understand that we can only work with things within a specific spatial feature. As in, we're creating the boxes. We know they are not natural. We have to do what science is doing as well. They're also putting things in boxes, and we must be observant of, as which is one of the flaws of general science, is that they were eager to put things in boxes, and then they became too specialized within their box, and they kind of segregated themselves from the rest of the unity, and then forgot that everything's interconnected, that they began this specialization so that they would be skilled within one segment, one little nodal point of reality. And we must keep that in mind when we specialize into specific things where we're thinking about, okay, can I use this to change something? And that's why I'm saying, okay, I'm looking at a specific case study. That's just one little tiny bit out of a huge pattern of things which goes with the matrix of change, which I've explained there, the amplification vector, how these different, and I'm only using 4 different groups that are working together, amplifying each other into a new reality program, into a new structure of the reality program. When the matter of the fact is, it's much, much more complex. But this is kind of what we could say, the base program ideas that we typically typically understand, it's just kind of when we talk about leadership or in businesses, we can say, we just need to acknowledge our co-workers. We need to give them incentives. It could be either you have the leader, that's not just a manager, that means just an administrator of what we call accounting and rules and laws and what you can buy and all of these processes that are part of being a leader, all of that administration. But you also need to lead your co-workers. You need to inspire them. You need to be there for them in their different processes. You need to be some kind of what we call substitute parent that are literally looking at your co-workers and say, I can see exactly what you are, so I'll try to help you to upgrade and mature into the role I actually want you to play out inside this business. So this is also when we talk about having, if we do choose to have a changemaker project or a new reality business, which I have put for now just kind of free material out there. There are something you can read there for free. And I have the idea that I want to do courses on this one, but I wanted to do this toolkit first because this is a process of understanding new ways of driving business as well as new ways of doing project management. So that's also part of this long pattern that I am working with. So now we'll work with the skill sets. We have worked with the progression sciences. We have worked with the Project Blue Flower, which is the first project that you embark on your everyday life. You need to be in control of your life. That's the first step. Control of your food. That's the plant-based diet. Control of your body. That's the daily exercise. Control of your energy work. Control of your education. Control of your psychological structure, control of the progression sciences, control of the true reality sciences, control of everything that goes with, that's the basic understanding that we all should have. Those have, I think, put, whether it is both in the whole integration class 6, which you can get for free, or a whole integration class 5, which is also for free, where I talk about the developmental processes or the different layers that we have to go through, or out there for free, where I talk about the Alice A. Bailey material and how the planetary hierarchy saw the education of the future of a new age, how that was so supposed to unfold, where everybody needed to understand the chakra system and how to develop their energy system, which we now know, that was the old world order. And we have got the stellar activation cycle and incoming races and grays and the Orion conglomerate and military projects or whatever. They didn't talk about these things back then because it all broke down. The planetary hierarchy began its exodus around 1959, where we had the new grays coming in because they did not succeed in that 50-year project they began in the beginning of, we could discuss whether or not Madame Blavatsky was part of that project. Probably was, probably could be of the dark factions. We don't know that. When I look at Madame Blavatsky, I say, she looks a little bit dark to me. Whereas when we talk about Alice A. Bailey, she was nobility, English aristocrat, nobility. Sorry about that. That's because I'm not supposed to go there. But she was Baal lineage and what have you, Christian oriented, all these kind of things. You can get that if you read some of that material. And it is from Lucius Trust. And you can say it's Lucius Lucifer. And yes, Lucifer is the light bringer. And yes, Madame Blavatsky put in that Lucifer was the light bringer. So that goes a little bit with falling angelics, which I actually think Blavatsky belongs to. That's that faction of dark ones because she's not a classical third cycle dark one. Anyway, so this is, again, just going in, understanding who is promoted, what kind of information, for what purpose, and why is it there. And it's not just simple as in, if you've got spiritual teaching systems, are they actually there for our highest good? So with that understanding of history and background and what we need to do, and we're now in control of our own reality. And if you're not even begun at that and you want to say, I want to go out and change the world, I want to do the transformative processes, and I want to realign with our reality field and do the true progression work. If you're not even capable of doing your daily exercise, I'm not saying you have to do it every day, because there are some days where we're just too too drained that it's impossible, but mainly as in kind of the minimum requirement to keep your body functional and maintain a higher level of energy. Also to constantly lift yourself up into what's left of the code streams of a reality field where there is a viability. And if you get too lethargic, as I explained, you will not, in the free material, you will not get up to these networks. And you need to be in these networks to actually instigate any form of change. Because if you are in the networks of the fallen ones or in the fourth cycle and third cycle grids that are now completely going to next 10 years, they are out of business, you will not be part of the transition. So it's simple as that. There are some simpler requirements in our toolbox that you have to have in order first. And that is the understanding of how to administer your base program life and what that means. And you need to succeed that one. And that's some of the steps I went through until 2007, where I could say, yeah, I ticked all the boxes. I've been a good parent. I've been a good wife. I've been a good daughter. I've been a good friend. I have done well within business. I actually ended up being quite skilled within human resource management line of work as a recruiter, and all of these kind of things. I ticked the boxes, and then I crashed with all sorts of stresses and all sorts of things because I was working so much against my coding, against my energy structure, against everything that I was playing a role that eventually had to collapse because it was a persona that I was not. I was so unauthentic that I literally collapsed under all of these different roles I had taken on. But I nailed the base program. And then it was kind of, yeah, you've done everything you need to do, including clearing the connections to my mother, clearing the web of my family, clearing the energy system, the psychological work. I did 10 years of inner work, 10 years of meditation work, 10 years of all sorts of old world order program, spiritual teaching systems. That's why I keep referring to the Bailey material, the chakra work, whatever, the Kabbalah, whatever you can think of. I went through it, including taking it to the highest level as formal education. So I can say I nailed all of that. I ticked all the boxes of what is required of you as part of the base program, saying I've done that. And that's been an advantage when I have done some of the trials of whether it's the old world order program or the underworld or the netherworld, the older cycles or whatever faction I've been up against. I can always say as a foundation, I have ticked that original program that was put in motion, not only by the controllers and not only by the planetary hierarchy and not only by the old world order factions and not only by the hijackers and not only by I always refer to him as my brother, that D13 collective, main vegan, Syrian vegan that used to be part of the D14 collective, but chose to go in the other direction as part of my lineage. So that's why I call him my brother. He's not my brother, of course, but we have the same lineage. And he instigated all of these programs that were here as part where he took over the Pillar Project and rearranged it after I was exiled. So I can say, well, I played out all of my brother's programs as well. And I've shown one by one that this is not enough to get us out of the trouble that we're in, because whatever's going on in the base program is no longer part of the original restoration program. It's no longer part of the original program and developmental programs that were put here. They've been tampered with. They have been rearranged. Whatever he came up with is no longer functional. And that's been part of some of the things I've been doing here, which some of the factions thought were, but now understand because they have made me play all of the different programs due to my genetic composition and my alignment with him, so they could use me as a substitute in some of his programs, which I then have been forced to clear out. And all the effects of it have understood, okay, we can no longer use the program. It's called the father programs, to be honest. And then this is where I come in and say the original Pillar Project were the mother programs. And that's a completely different type of progressive human, D14. And that's why I call the female, male and female, because the D13 are the father programs going with some of the cubes that have begun to see themselves as divinities, which are part of some of the spiritual teaching systems. So now you begin to understand some of the things on that level that matches is some of the configurations and ideas within humanity. So what we need to understand as part of our toolbox here is that we have got a plethora of options. We have got this whole spectrum of different teaching systems, the whole spectrum of different sciences, the whole spectrum of different ways of being a human. And we need to understand as much as possible so we can see each and one of the things we specialize in within both a very simple structure where we are simplifying things so we can work with them. But at the same time, we also need to understand the complexity behind each and one of the single units that we're working with. So you need to be able to both specialize, but at the same time, see what you're working with within the context of it. And let's do a simple thing, as in you can both say, yeah, you can look at your thumb and you can say, yeah, I'm focusing on the build of the thumb, how it's made and what its purpose is, what it can do, how it operates in space, and all sorts of things. And you can focus completely on the thumb. But the thumb is only a topic or an item to be worked with to a certain extent. Then you have to look into what is it doing as part of the hand. And then you can look at the hand and say, oh, the hand is doing this and that, whatever. And then at some point you say, yeah, now I got all the details of the hand. Oh, it's part of the arm. Okay. Then you look at the arm and say, oh, the arm is doing this and that, whatever. You get completely excited. And then at some point you realize that, yeah, the arm is part of a torso. Okay. What does the torso do? And each time you're getting a higher and higher complexity rate. Because once you reach the torso, you will also have, it's not just a torso, you will have organs, you will have then go into each organ, and you get completely lost in all of the details. And that is what is understood to the saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. So you begin to get too obsessive about the details, so you forget the entirety it's part of, because everything is a system. The trees are part of a large ecosystem we call the forest. And it's not just about the trees. You go into the trees have roots. They have, all sorts of roots that goes into the soil. But mainly what's actually upholding a forest are all the fungi. People rarely know that, but that's actually the truth. They have this, the fungi are the neural network of a forest. And you will, if you study fungi or little funguses, fungi is the plural of fungus, you will see that that's actually the case, because that's the information bringers. They are literally working the same way as our brain is working within our body, where our neural network is the information provider, information bringer, information system that keeps our body functional, the central nervous system. So that's the interesting part of that one. And then you have all the life forms that are part of that construction. And what are they doing there? And what are they contributing with? Which types of insects are doing this and that, whatever. Then you go into the functionality of that organism that we call a forest. So that's a system. So now that's the same with human. You could do the same with us. Yes, we are individuals, but we are part of a very large system that works in a specific way. And there you have the developmental programs and you have the alien technology. And that's the line of thought you just have to have as a natural baseline understanding of the world that we're part of. So when we do the new reality transition work, I'm here looking at the text material, which is just one page. It doesn't need to be anything else, because we're going to have discussions here as a case study, as an, okay, I want to change the world. And I've here told you, you can change the world one bit at a time. You have to do one human at a time or one cucumber at a time. Or you can go in, as I also talk about in some of the free podcasts, you can work with individuals. Or you can work with organizations and businesses, whether it's NGO or it's a nonprofit or it's pro-profit or it's hybrid projects, whatever it is. I'll go for the hybrid projects because we have to pay our bills. And if you get submerged into this whole want to change reality, my advice is always finding a way to do your own business. That's why I've taken up the whole, we're doing a project, but we're also running it as a business. So we're doing a hybrid project where we're both non-profit and pro-profit. We're in between, a hybrid. But it's not just about earning money to pay our bills, because we are, as I talk about in the whole Changemaker projects also on my website, or the business part, which I'll make course material to at some point, whatever that means, because we're kind of, when we're running a business, there are certain dynamics we need to master to have a functional business. Similar when we're doing project management, there are certain ways we're doing project management. And I'm planning to say, okay, can I have at least one course that will also be suitable? But it all comes down to the same thing I'm saying here. So in a way, if I nail all the boxes within this, both the skill set courses as well as here, when we talk about the toolkits, where we get more practical, even though we're still theoretical, but we're working with a reality case study, not just our own skill set, psychologically speaking, being prepared and having the resilience to do it. We're now focusing on a reality project, which is, of course, sorry about that. Knew that one was coming. It's connected to the new reality setup, but we are also in that challenge that program of the enhanced humans has fallen apart and failed for now. So when I work with this as a case study, it is perhaps you say, well, why work with a case study that's not going to have an effect because it's kind of failed? Well, as I said, all of these groups have done whatever, and there are ripple effects into our reality of it. We are still playing on the fumes of these new reality programs. It's still there. The technology is still there. The parasites are still there. What they changed of genetic engineering, modification, and upgrade programs are still there. Humans still have what was connected to that. They're still connected to the cube. They're still connected to the clones. So it's still running. They might have taken off because it failed, but it's still running. So we still have the fumes of it to work with without being entangled into it, without getting ourselves into that and saying, oh yeah, we'll use that model of change. We'll use the matrix of change. We understand the dynamics of it, similarly as we understand the dynamics of how a forest works. As in, when you go into the forest, you will have different areas around the forest where different groups of life forms are having their little jurisdiction. And you will understand that if you're sensitive enough. So, and you will understand, okay, so the trees were originally part of the Pleiadian transformative projects of transforming the reality science, no, not the reality science, the reality construction into what we call the original outer domain configuration. And from that, be able to link back up to the mother programs as a progressive human D14 collective. So that's what nature is. And then I just told you, yeah, and then we have the fungi that are working with the soil, and the soil is where everything is rotting and decaying. So that's the abyss. So are the fungi, or the network of the fungi, is that part of the Pleiadian project, or is it part of the third cycle? And I would say that's part of the underworld. Because fungi are disgusting. They grow in rotten soil. That's what they are doing. And what are they changing that into, if I look at it into energetically, including different forms of sponges in the ocean, as well as if you want to do, what is it called in English? Forgot the words. The eatable mushrooms, the word mushrooms, including mushrooms with DMT, and all of these sorts of what we call phytosilifin, whatever, they got a fancy word for these mind-altering substances you can find in some mushrooms. They are changing the neural network into a more chaotic network that works in the same way as if you are doing some kind of electroshock that rearranges the neural network. But what is it changing it into? It's based upon fungi that are part of the third cycle in the underworld. So it's perhaps not the realigning of the neural network to the third cycle that is the best way of dealing with different forms of what we call psychological, neurological diseases or dysfunctional features of the brain and electrochemical processes such as depression and other things. You can look at this up. There have been some case studies where they're working with the different phytosilifin something, PSY, whatever it's called. I'm never, this is the problem. I'm seeing what it is. I know what it is. But when I read these articles, I'm always reading it from a double awareness perspective. So I'm not remembering what they are calling it. But we could say the substances that are mind altering, that are within different forms of mushrooms, they've been used in different scientific experiments to see if they have been able to assist humans that are suffering from severe depression depression, because these people are not responding well to different serotonin tailored types of drugs that are used typically for people with different forms of, and you have different brand marks out there in the world that we have here in Denmark, so I can't just say, but we call it the happy pill here in Denmark, so that if you have depression, you get onto this type of drug, which will then administer your serotonin level and keep your emotional imbalances within what we could call as narrow spectrum of fallout, or what we could say it stabilizes the mood swings. That was the word I was looking for. So you have that, and I forgot what the English name is for it, because this is not where I want to go. But this is also something you need to know and understand, these kind of things that are going on, that there are different sciences out there trying to solve one problem using things they haven't used before. And the reason is why they're now using cannabis and mushrooms and stuff that typically goes under the shamanistic military projects. The military projects, the ones under the military projects, been under these types of, they always, people who are doing ayahuasca and DMT and whatever, always say, yeah, I need to open up, and they feel the urge to do so. That's part of the programming, that they do that. And then that links them up to some of the Atlantean projects. So they might have been part of a different project, and then they got the urge to do that because they've been around people, as I talked about, the shedding off and imprinting, which then derails them into another project where they, via DMT and cannabis and all of these more mind-altering substances, are then drawn into the third cycle groups and races that are here, and from that are linked up to different forms of technologies, because they have created the breach. They have created the backdoor using these substances. So therefore, I'm not recommending that one either, just to put that in context. So as we are doing here, when we have the toolkit, we are not naive in any ways or form. So we, as whole change makers, when we choose to do the new reality transition work, we know that it's, I'm here saying it in a very, very nice way. It's not always working in our favor. It's rarely working in our favor, but this is, kind of diplomatic way of putting things, because we could say, well, if I say it's never in our favor, well, I kind of programmed it to be that way. So therefore we could say it's not always. Sometimes opening up the door that there are grids out there, there are code streams that can work in our favor. But as long as we are part of the base program, as long as we are still connected to these different groups that are here, it is most of the time, as we're working our way through that, we are going up against all odds. We're working against the wind. We're climbing up a hill that is in the middle of an avalanche, of a mudslide. So this is the difficult stuff. This just to prepare us for what we are up against. And then you said, well, Randy, if I kind of work with that idea that everything is working against, am I then not creating that? And see, that's another toolkit for those of you, and for me as well, when I'm doing this, in spite of all the things I've seen, because I know what the history, the background, the understanding, my role in it, where I belong, my own core essence. I am this weird cognitive dissonance, this weird state where I know all of these things. But because I've gone through all of these processes and transformed all the technology that are putting me into despair, the 70s, that could tailor electrochemical processes that would lead to depression, I am getting hints at it. I am getting pushes at it. They are trying to reconfigure me to get all in kind of, why are you doing this? And the cubes are telling me you shouldn't do that. And whatever I'm working my way through, they are definitely playing with me. But because I have the observer, I'm catching it right away and saying, that's not who I am, because I know in my heart why I'm doing this. I know what my function and what my purpose is. I know who I used to be. I know the story I've gone through. I know the trauma. I know what's been done to me. I've seen all these realities. I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still doing what I need to do. I have been as low as you get in the netherworlds. I have been tormented as much as you can get. I am still here. I'm still walking. I'm still doing what I need to do because I'm still alive. So what would the point be of me going into all sorts of emotional outswings and here and there all across the entire spectrum of all human emotions? What would that lead to? Nothing. Absolutely nothing other than just making my life the living hell. So I'm just turning that one. And that's part of the resilience, where you go through all of this hardship and all of these processes, and you cry and you laugh and you feel depressed, and you go through all the entire spectrum of all negative human emotions. And you go through the spectrum of all positive human emotions. And you understand that that's part of the Buddhist teachings. And that's probably why I've been a Buddhist monk as well, or have a program in me that tells me I've been a Buddhist monk. So I draw on that experience of being the observer, of being mindful in whatever I'm doing. And if I get into this whole what's the purpose kind of thing, I know, parasitic, I go for the parasites. If I can't go for the cute because it's not showing itself, then I do something else. Like, with little toddlers, they get completely absorbed in all of their limbic emotional system as they begin to create their personality structure and draw that in. They can get some tantrums. And the only way to get them out of the tantrum, because you can't explain it to them, they're too young for that. So the only thing you can do is comfort them for a while. And then if they can't snap out of it, you literally give them something else to focus on. You do distraction. So that we can do as well. But the goal of this one is not to go into distraction mode whenever it's difficult. No, we need to do the psychological processes first. And then when we come to the conclusion, I can't do much about that right now. Okay, I'll focus on something else. I'll work with something else, which will lead to some kind of success. Bake a cake or do some healthy food or whatever. You can bake cakes without sugar and all sorts of nasty things, or do pancakes. Do something that leads to some kind of outcome that you can kind of enjoy. Go for a walk, not if it's one of the bad days where the sun is shedding off all of its dark energies, but do exercise, do something else that kind of that snaps you out of that rut in your neural network, that scheme in your neural network that's been amplified to run in a negative way. And then get back on track and say, yes, I know it's a process. Yes, I know it'll take time. But as we kind of also, not that we are fatalistic or kind of going with destiny and just saying, this is the destiny of my life. There's a little bit of fatalism, as it's called in a very fancy word, where you go with fate. There is a little bit of that understanding there. And you just acknowledge the fact that this is who I am. This is my life. This is how it is. And not fighting against it, not going in and saying, I wish it was different. Yeah, I wish it was different a lot of times. And I do have things that I dreamt of. But due to my age and what I've been through in life, I have had a lot of dreams, and none of them ever came to never blossomed. Sorry, I'm doing a different word here, because my neural network won't do that one. Anyway, so it never came into fruition. It never blossomed. It never came out as I wanted it to become. And then there are other things that I have wanted to work with in a specific manner, as in kind of doing this course material, thinking about how do I want to do this course material, just work in the flow of the energy system of it, because that's an energy system to the energy configuration, go through the pattern, work on the different aspects of the pattern, unfold it and unzip it and get the information into some kind of course material, text, website, something else. And there I kind of feel, yes, it lives up to my requirements. It lives up to the standards I want to have for my material. And then I got, yes, I've done that. I ticked that box. Did it give me gratification? Did it give me any result that changed the world? Did it make people feel better about themselves? Did it change anything in this reality? What do I know? It works in ripples, so I don't know the outcome. But I have seeded in something that I can be content with. I have put in a seed. I've created the architecture of the seed. I created the purpose of the seed. I created it can blossom into a matrix of change, as we talked about new reality sciences as well. It can change into something because I've made the complex and correct type of architecture of it, because I work with all details of it. First specialization, then going into the different branches of it, the different if it unfolds in the correct manner as it's supposed to, what will then be the future ramifications of it? What will it lead to? I work with it in connection to the different code streams. I looked at it from all of the levels of my understanding of reality, which can always be better because we're never done, and exemplified it in different ways and forms that for me will say, well, I've seeded a pattern of change. And similarly as the matrix of change, it only comes into fruition, it only blossoms if there are people that pick up on that pattern of change and work with it and exemplify it and put it in motion. So that's what I am good at. And that was what I did in the Pillar Project as well. That's the science level of me. That's the judge and science level of me. That's where I go in and work with the programs, because I was part of the architect behind the Mother program and the architecture behind the Pillar Project. So that's my force. That's my ability to do that. So as long as I keep it there and I work with it to a larger degree, as in kind of first via mastering the base program, then working as a psychotherapist, then working as a healer, because I got that one as well as a skill set and I work with it in practicality, then working with the different alien groups, then working with people under the different military projects, etc., working my way through all of the layers that are here, both theoretically and practically, as well as what's in the old and what needs to be transformed and what am I dealing with right now. I can say I have ticked the boxes on that one as well. So I know what I'm working with. And because I know of all the problems and all the issues and what's not working, I can then go in and say, how can we then create a new program that can make it work? Even though I know that there are groups that are fighting against it, that you have to go through so many layers to get to that point yourself. But I'm still making the programs for the future humanities. There might be at some point in time, an opening, a window of possibility, a miracle, something that allows certain people to actually work with the programs in the manner I've intended. It's still there. The architecture is there, even though people are only downloading versions of it or portions of it when they do the progression sciences or when you do this course material. Perhaps you only get 10% because you don't have the same expanded reality perception as I have. So you don't understand what I'm actually talking about, but you're understanding it within your neural network capacity and what you have activated. And that's the seed. The question is, what do you do with it? How do you work with that tool I have here provided and I'm here providing to you? And that's why we need the case study. So you kind of understand, okay, what are the details of creating a pattern of change? And that, for me, the first step is to master the base program, the whole project Blue Flower. That's the first project. The next step is the psychological work. The next step is the progression work. And then you can go in and say, okay, you need the galactic history. You need to understand the timeline work. You need to understand everything that we're dealing with. These are the sciences that I'm trying also to work with the Systemic Energetic Awareness Forum, where I'll look more into that. But this is not just about history, because I kind of covered that both in my books as well as in the perception logs, as well as in the course material, where history was tailored into the context of the work, because history as a history alone does not give much unless you work with it as a psychological, progressive, psychic, energetic approach, where you use history to get to the different timelines. And that would be part of the systemic level of the reality, where we really begin to understand that as we have cleared our personal timelines and different programs we've been part of, we also understand that when we are then let loose into the reality code streams of the original reality under the Pillar Project guidelines, which is the idea with the systemic awareness that I will get to at some point, because I'm working my way through from the thumb, the individual, to the hand, the group, to the arm that is connecting it to the torso, to the rest of the body that is functional in space of this reality. We are working in these cycles with individuals, with organizations or businesses, with what we could call different kind of communities or larger networks, into what we call more global national settings and onward and so forth. We're working through the same rings: individual, others, society, local, political, expanded awareness, into where we become what we call engaged in creating a new world that we are part of, as part of a planet, as part of a solar system, as part of a cosmos. So we're constantly expanding our perception field. That's the knowledge. The practicality goes into the influential sphere. That's what we are doing as change makers. We are taking all of that knowledge, all of that energy work, all of these transformational processes we have done on our own, and trying to exemplify them into not only being influential in our influential sphere because we change our own energy system. We have put it into practicality by being what we're preaching. We walk the talk. We are what we are going to change in the world. We have become ourselves. First, most important step. You can't change any energy, any setting in the world unless you have become it yourself. And that goes for both sides of the polarity game. Just to kind of understand the fifth cycle dynamics here, because the dark ones are doing exactly the same thing. And that's what they're working on. And unfortunately, their success rate is right now larger than our success rate. Because as change makers, most of you are simply not equipped to understand the game that you are in. You are still too naive. You're still too trusting. You still hope for the best in everybody. And you've been conditioned to believe that if only you love enough, if only you're compassionate enough, then whatever's in front of you will not attack you, which is not correct. And I suggest you at some point get yourself a pair of balls and look into some of the underworld creatures and underworld levels of your subconscious emotional field, and you will there understand that yes, light can take you so far, but there are certain things that needs to be dealt with in a different manner. And that's part of the warrior that I have got in my makeup too. So you see, even on the highest level of who and what I am, I got the different architecture, the different programs that allows me to play out these different features as a complex personality structure that both has mastered the base program, the different artificial realities and onward and so forth, and remembering who and what I am. That's the first most important part of being a change maker. So for many of you, that will be all that you do as change makers. But if you master that one, at least master the base program, you get an honorable life that you can at the end of the time say, I've done my very best on that level. Thumbs up. If you go in the artificial fourth dimension and you master that, the energetic parasites, and you know how to deal with it because we're never done with it. It will always be there. Similarly, as this reality is also there as long as we live. This is the world we are part of. And it's clearly not changing right away, right? But we're doing what we can. Same with the artificial fourth, artificial fifth, the regress races, whatever we're up against. As long as you can say on every different level, you're always on top of it. You're always doing what you can to clear out. You're always doing what you can to make a difference on that level of who and what you are. You have done the best you could. And that's all we can ask. And only you can know what you see to do the best. For me, it's the highest purity rate, the highest standards, and the highest progression rates because I am fucking ambitious and I've always been. And I've always been into details. I've always been into the perfection because I stand accountable for the ancient ones. I'm one of that group that got the allowances to recreate this portion of their construction into the Pillar Project. So I stand accountable for some really large ancient beings. I literally got the allowances to tailor a new Pillar Project. And that's one of the reasons why I got exiled. So you begin to understand, okay, so I also have this kind of political understanding of the races that we're part of. I got a history that, yes, I have been down crying in complete self-pity about it. But through these processes, I got to the other end and said, yeah, what does that does not give me anything other than just feeling miserable. So let me try and find solutions. And that's one of the things with the change maker. We go through many different processes, emotional, psychological, physical, whatever's going on. But each time we find solutions and ways to master it in a degree where we can go in and say, yes, I nailed that one. No, it did not lead to what I expected, but I now know what it is so I can transform it. And I keep transforming it, even though it will recreate itself due to all of that technology, all of the layers of our reality, and nothing is never ending. It's continuing over and over again in this merry-go-round that we are part of. Oh, no, I'm back on that one. Yes, it's fucking annoying, but you transform it, you work your way through it until next month where it comes back and kick you in the butt and you have to do it all over again. And then you transform it and you get on and you move on and you create some type of work that means something for you. That's the change maker. So that's the constant going, in spite of that we are rarely really getting to the level that we want to. So that's where I want to go in this first, or technically third podcast. But the first two ones were just laying the foundation. Now we have gone into actually working with the toolkit. So the first toolkit here is master the blue flower before you even begin dreaming of becoming a change maker. Because everything that you learn in the processes of mastering the base program will come in handy when you expand your awareness into the other realities. I've mentioned that one before. And then formal education within project management, business tools, start of a business, even though I'll come up with my explanations of how we can work with that from an alternate reality perspective. You still need the foundation. You still need the basic understanding of paying tax and VAT and accounting and all of the things that goes with the base program. All of the laws of the base program. You must abide to these. You can't break the laws in the base program, because then you're a criminal and you're a crook and you don't live up to the higher standards. It doesn't matter what reality we are part of. Even though if we are in the worst enslavement worlds of all, there are some pretty horrible ones in the Orion system. We still play by the rules, even though we are there, because only by being impeccable in the rules of the system, as well as still remembering the progressive dynamics, are we to create that fusion of what is wrong with what is right, so that we can transform energy. And we'll continue with that one in the next podcast. Thank you.